If there's a silver lining to the Democrat shutdown deal, it is that Speaker Mike Johnson is forced to undissolve the House of Representatives after 7 straight weeks of recess. And with the House back, Speaker Johnson must swear in Arizona Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva tomorrow. She says she will provide the 218th signature on a discharge petition to force a vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, something Johnson has been pretty desperately trying to avoid throughout the shutdown. This all comes as we learn from a whistleblower that the only person involved in Epstein's crimes to ever be convicted of engaging with those crimes is Ghislaine Maxwell, now plans to ask Trump for a commutation after receiving weeks of, quote, concierge-style treatment in prison. Congressman Ro Khanna is a Democrat of California. He and Republican member Thomas Massie filed the discharge petition in September. Congressman Khanna joins me now. Congressman, I guess, one of the things I learned during the course of this is that a discharge petition, people can take their names off it before it hits 218. But once it hits 218, it is locked. And I wondered how much jockeying was happening behind the scenes. Is it your expectation that tomorrow Congresswoman Grijalva gets signed in and it gets to 218?
Yes, but it's not done until it's done. And there's a tremendous amount of White House pressure on a couple of the people, in particular, the Republicans who signed the petition. My expectation is it holds. Adelita Grijalva signs it. And then we have a vote 7 days later. December 3rd is when we're targeting for a vote of the full release of the Epstein files.
How central do you think your efforts to force that vote were in the response of Mike Johnson taking this truly unprecedented step of essentially keeping Congress out for 2 months?
Unfortunately, it was the cause of it. I mean, it pains me because people are going without food stamps, people are going without pay. All of that could have been resolved if he had just had Congress in session, because we would have been paying the troops. We would have been extending SNAP. And here's the dispositive fact, Chris. If it wasn't because of Epstein, he could have still shut down Congress and just sworn in Adelita Grijalva. The fact that he didn't swear her in is the reason that he shut this thing down.
I want to ask you about some of this reporting we've seen about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I have to say, read a lot of news stories every day. My blood pressure stays pretty regulated because there's a lot of bad stuff happening. But the reporting about Maxwell made me pretty personally angry. I mean, this is the original sin of the Jeffrey Epstein saga, is that he was caught preying on girls and was cut a sweetheart deal that allowed him to keep doing. The only person now who has been brought to account for those crimes, Ghislaine Maxwell, was taken out of the prison she was in after she gave an interview to the president's personal lawyer. A waiver had to be signed by the Department of Prison to put her in a minimum security prison, and this is what's happening there. Maxwell has received customized meals personally delivered to her cell, after hours time in a private exercise area, and access to a service puppy. Maxwell was also afforded private meetings with visitors arranged by the warden, complete with snacks. This is Jamie Raskin, your colleague, writing a letter about this to Trump. The deference and servility of Ms. Maxwell have reached such preposterous levels that one of the top officials of the facility has complained he is sick of having to be Maxwell's bitch. What do you make of this reporting?
Well, it doesn't just get your blood boiling, Chris. You know whose blood it got boiling is the survivors, because I was with them in a press conference in front of the Capitol, and I'll be with them with Thomas Massie in front of the Capitol again next week. And we were saying, look, let's talk about the Epstein file release. Let's talk about all the rich and powerful men who were involved in this abuse. And they would keep bringing up this Maxwell pardon because they said Maxwell was involved in their abuse. And it was an affront to them that someone who sexually abused them was going to get special treatment or a pardon from the president. Anyone who talks to these survivors will be outraged that this is even being considered.
How hard is this White House going to fight this if in fact, 24 hours from now, that discharge petition signed? How much pressure is going to be brought to bear on the House on the vote?
There's going to be tremendous pressure, and that is because I believe 50 to 60 Republicans could break, and that would be the first day of Donald Trump being a lame duck. Look, this is about our politics. Are we going to be for the forgotten class of Americans or for the Epstein class? And Donald Trump suddenly is going to be part of the swamp protecting the Epstein class, and he's going to have a chunk of the MAGA base with every Democrat saying we're for working class Americans, forgotten Americans. That's why they are so fearful of this vote.
I want to ask you about something you said, I think, earlier today about the end of the shutdown deal. I just interviewed the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. I think you said that you think Senator Schumer should be replaced or resign as Senate Democratic leader. Why?
He was unable to protect health care. I mean, we did nothing as premiums are going to skyrocket for 20 million Americans. Look, this is why I ran for Congress, for national health care, Medicare for all. That's what we need to do with a broken system. But at the very least, we can make sure that we have some tax credit extensions so that people's premiums don't spike from $44 a month to $2,600 a month. That is what's going on with real people that I've talked to. It's outrageous.
Do you think there's any hope for the next iteration of this fight? I asked this of Congressman Jeffries. Like, I don't think it had quite sunk into me because the shutdown was going on so long. The CR is going to go through January. I mean, that's going to be here like very soon. So it's like, well, what are we going to do then? What's going to go on then?
Well, I do think that that's another opportunity to make this fight. And that's why I've said let's have some fresh blood and new leadership. Look, Chris, I want a permanent extension of the affordable tax credits. But we could have had at least a one-year extension. Representative Michael Lawler, a Republican, has floated that. Kevin Kiley, a Republican, has floated that. We could have had negotiations on eligibility. I don't think there should be negotiations about eligibility, but I would have been willing to compromise. What I'm not willing to do is say we get nothing and that 20 million people get shafted. And then they have all these pundits saying, well, we made health care an issue. Really? That's why we're in politics, to make it a talking point? How about actual relief for people whose premiums are going to go up?
Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you so much for your time tonight.